Hello friends, very good morning. Welcome to the Hindu analysis. Today's first article, weighing in on India's investment-led revival. So this again comes under your General Studies paper 3, Indian economy. What is the meaning of weighing in on? Weighing in on means giving an opinion. This person is giving his opinion on India's investment-led revival. What is the meaning of investment-led revival? Revival is getting back to original shape. For example, if an economy is not growing, has slowed down, what is the meaning of revival? Again going back to earlier growth phase, that is revival. And they are saying investment led revival. What does that mean? It means the revival is to be led by investment. What is the meaning of investment? Investment means investing in new businesses, investing in infrastructure, investing in expansions of existing businesses. All these things, we call it gross fixed capital formation. Gross fixed capital formation includes industries buying machineries, government investing a lot of money in terms of laying roads, power projects, power lines and all those things, bridges. All these physical capital formation, we call it physical capital formation. All of them together is called investment. And Nirmala Sitharaman is saying we are going to see an investment led revival. So the government is spending a loads of money in capital intensive projects or capital expenditure. We call it capital expenditure. Capital expenditure is nothing but investment in productive assets like roads, power sector, agriculture, industry, right? If the government is investing money in them to increase their productive capacity, all of them are referred to as investments or fixed capital formations. And Nirmala Sitharaman is saying that will lead to revival of the economy. And the author is here to give his opinion on Madam's Nirmala Sitharaman's comments. So that is what we are going to look at. So before getting into the article, I want you to see this particular chart. The entire essence of the article lies in this particular chart. If you are preparing for UPSC and if economy is your pain point, trust me, if you follow the classes, if you follow all the articles that I am covering, you will fall in love with economy and you will leave that fear about this particular subject. And as a student of economy, you should have interest in reading charts and tables, and don't get frightened whenever you look at chart or table. There is a lot of information that we can learn, that we can pick from this particular chart or table. Look at this. It talks about, this particular chart talks about real fixed investment rate, and it is measured in this GFCF by GDP. GDP, you all know, gross domestic product. You can call it your national income, and on top you have GFCF, gross fixed capital formation, which includes all your investments in fixed assets. What are fixed assets? Machinery, roads, power projects, all these things are fixed assets. And this investment rate as a percentage of GDP, how it has been from 2011 to 2019-20. In 2011 and 12 it used to be 34.3%. GFCF used to be 34.3% of the GDP. From then on it fell and reached the lowest point of 30.7% in 2015-16, and from there it slowly rose to the level of 32.5 in 2019 and 20. Are you getting this? What is the meaning of this particular table? This particular chart tells us that investment rate had been declining from 11 to 12 till 15-16, and from there it has started rising slowly. It has slowly started rising. This is the meaning of this particular chart. And this also tells successive governments' priorities. Between 2011 and 12 to 2000 up till 14 you had this UPA government, United Progressive Alliance government under Manmohan Singh. It was in power since 2009 till 2014 it was in power. From 2004, in fact 2004 to 2014 it was in power, right? So you can see in Manmohan Singh's government there is a decline in the investment rate with respect to GDP, and from 15-16 you have Modi's government. It has slowly started picking up, but it has still not reached the highest level we achieved in 2011 and 12. This is something we can understand from this particular graph. Similarly, you have some more information here, very important and useful information. Shares of gross capital formation by GDP. So out of the overall capital formation, what is the share of agriculture, what is the share of industry, what is the share of manufacturing, and what is the share of services? Let's look at it. So the share of agriculture used to be 8.5%, and then it went down to 6.4%, which means investment rate in agriculture has actually fallen compared to 2011 to 12. Are you getting this point or not? Investment, what is the meaning of investment? For example, if the government is investing in micro irrigation, drip irrigation, all these things come under investments in agriculture. These investments as a percentage of GDP fell from 11 to 12 to 2019-20. Similarly, if you look at industry, even within industry, from 38.1% it fell to 32.5%. So this is your primary sector, this is your secondary sector. Both in primary sector as well as secondary sector, investment rate has fallen down. Are you getting this or not? And within industry you have manufacturing. He has used 2.1, which means within industry you have manufacturing. Even in manufacturing there is decline in investment rate. The third category is services. In services, if you see, from 47.3 it has gone up. Only in services we are seeing an uptick in terms of investment. Within services you have transport, and within transport you have road. That is why they have mentioned 3, and this is 3.1 instead of 4. They mentioned 3.1. That means transport is part of services. This is 3.1.1, which means road is part of transport. If you look at transport, it was 8.1%. Now it is 12.9, which means there is a higher investment happening in the transport segment. And within transport you can see from 3.7 it fell down to 1.9. From there it again picked up to 3.1. So which means there is some amount of growth even in transportation, even in road segment as well. So that is what we are trying to say. So if I have to summarize this chart, what you can see is over last few years, investment rate in agriculture fell as a percentage of GDP, in industry fell, within services went up. Within services the major contribution is again transportation. Within transportation the major contribution is road, which means the government is spending a lot of money. Our government is increasing its expenditure in services segment compared to agriculture and industry, and within services sector it is putting a lot of effort or money in transportation segment, and within transportation roads. This is what the government is spending. This is how the government is spending. This is how we need to look at the charts and try to gain valuable insights from it. Okay, I want you to keep this in mind. I will come back to this chart again. Once again. Keep this in mind. So let's go through some of the salient points mentioned in this particular article. So this article also talks about, look at this. Nirmala Sitharaman said long-term growth prospects are embedded in public capital expenditure programs. What is public capital expenditure? Public capital expenditure means expenditure spent by the government in capital programs. What is capital program? Productive assets like roads, power projects, bridges, etc. Okay, only when the government spends a lot of money on these projects, you will have revival of the economy. Only then you will have long-term growth of the economy. Yes or no? Tell me. See, roads, transportation, communication, power. What do they do? All of them come under services, but they are all under we call them part of infrastructure. What does infrastructure do? Infrastructure supports industry and agriculture. How does infrastructure support industry and agriculture? Think about it. For example, there is a village and the farmers are producing lot of farm, right? Like your wheat or rice or anything. But if that village is not connected to the market with roads are part of your services sector, roads is part of your infrastructure. If there are no proper roads connecting the village to the market, what will happen to all the yield that the village is producing? Either they will have to sell it at a very cheap rate in nearby places where there is not much demand, or it will go waste. So that is the reason infrastructure is the backbone of the economy. Roads, power projects, all these things are very much needed. When they are built, they will help primary sector, which is agriculture, secondary sector, which is industry. If you take the example of industry also requires good connectivity. Industry requires uninterrupted power supply. Industry requires having access to water. All this is part of infrastructure, which is services sector. So that is the beauty of services sector. So services sector is required. Only when you improve services sector, it will help the industry as well as the primary sector, which is agriculture. It seems that has been the ideology of the current government. It is spending a lot of money on services, transport and road, but not enough on agriculture and industry directly. It is spending a lot on the third sector, which is tertiary sector, which is services sector, and it is not spending enough money directly on agriculture and industry. So this is the crux of the editorial which you can see here. And Nirmala Sitharaman is saying, she is saying an increase in public investment would crowd in private investment, thus reviving the economy. I want you to teach this word called crowd in. What is the meaning of the word crowd in? It is important to look at these keywords and learn them immediately, then and there itself. What is the meaning of crowding in? So I will teach you with an example. Look at this. Crowding in. Crowding in generally happens when economy is in recession or is operating below its capacity. Let's say economy is not doing great, demand is less. Demand is less means people are not spending. People are not spending. Why they are not spending? Lack of enough income. Lack of enough incomes. Incomes are not sufficient, so they are not spending. So demand for goods and services is not great. So obviously production, only when there is a lot of demand for cycles, a cycle company will produce more. When the demand is less, production also will be less. This is a negative phase. And what Nirmala Sitharaman is saying, in such scenarios, if the government is spending a lot of money on capital expenditure, it will help revive the economy. How? Let's say government is spending a lot of money on roads, power lines, bridges and several other programs. When the government is building a lot of these, what will happen? The government awards contracts to private sector. Awards contract to private sector. So private sector gets money from the government. And private sector obviously employs a lot of people to do the work. So lot of people will get employment. So this money flows to people. So now all these employees will have a lot of money in their pockets. Once they have money, they will start buying goods and services. Once they start buying goods and services, demand picks up. Once the demand picks up, productions also picks up. So this way, are you getting this? When the production goes up, the same company, let's say we are talking about cycle company will want to start a new branch, right? New branch or new branch of industry, or they might want to get into another industry. So because they have a lot of money, there is a lot of demand from customers, they will expand their business. And this expansion is called investment, right? Whenever you are expanding, what is the meaning of that? Again, you have to buy machinery, you have to set up, you have to buy land, machinery, set up entire thing. This is called investment. So since it is done by private companies, it is called private investment. Are you getting it? Where did we start? We started with public investment. Public investment means government. Since government started spending money, and that money, so government started doing a lot of projects. Ultimately, it provided employment to a lot of people. People who did not have money earlier, did not have savings earlier, they got employment because of this. Now they got money. Now they started buying. Once they started buying, again the demand for goods and services goes up. When the demand goes up, obviously production goes up. The same companies will go for fresh investments. They will either expand the capacity of the current industry or current factory, or they will open a new factory altogether. This opening of new factory or expanding current factory is called private investment. So this way, public investment leads to private investment, and this effect is called crowding in effect. Crowding in effect. Are you understanding this or not? Right, guys? Whenever you watch any of my videos, I want you to give your feedback. Whether you are understanding, whether you are unable to understand, put it in the comment section. That will encourage me to cover more and more topics for you. I have a habit of covering everything in detail. Without looking at the clock, I have a habit of covering everything in detail. Right? After attending the session, you should have something to take away from it. So this is something you have learned today, crowding in effect. So that is what Nirmala Sitharaman is saying. By spending a lot of money on public projects, we are trying to revive the economy. We are trying to increase the private investment as well. That way, we are trying to increase the GDP, improve the GDP. Right. So madam has a theory. What is the theory? Public investment led economic revival. So madam is talking about public investment led economic revival. Did we have any case study for this? Did this happen earlier? Yes. In 1997, after the Asian financial crisis, even Atal Bihari Vajpayee government did the same thing. They initiated this public road building projects in 1997. So they started this golden quadrilateral project and Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana project. So these initiatives sowed the seeds of economic revival. Because government spent a lot of money in these projects, money started flowing from the government to the people, and people started spending the money, and economy slowly started reviving. And finally, in 2000s, we have seen boom in the economy where GDP was going 8 to 9% annually. So it happened in Atal Bihari Vajpayee government when India was facing similar kind of recession then. So they spent a lot of money in these roads and other projects. Finally, it led to an investment revival. Okay, when you come to 2010s, it was completely led by Manmohan Singh government. At that time, investment has been dismal. Manmohan Singh government did not focus much on investment. They focused more on welfare activities. From 2009 to 2014, the focus was more on welfare. So that is why we have this project acts like NFSA, Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act. These kind of acts came during that period. They did not focus much on the infrastructure aspect. But recently we are seeing an uptick. Again, after Modi's government came into picture, we are seeing an uptick in real gross fixed capital formation. Okay. So finally we have started seeing this. From in 2015-16 it was only 30.7. From there it went up to 32.5%. So this is what the author is trying to tell us. But here is the catch. The catch is here. The government is saying we are spending a lot of money on investment projects. But again, what you need to look at is budgetary definition. In the budget, whenever you mention investment, it refers to financial investments as well. For example, if you are purchasing any shares, or if you are giving any loans to states, they are also considered as investments. In the budget, if you are giving a loan to a state, that is also considered as an investment. If you are buying shares of any company, again that is considered as investment. But those things are not productive investments, right? If you are giving a loan to a state, how can you say you are producing a it is not equivalent to building a road? Obviously, right? It's not equivalent to building a road. So that is why those things have to be removed. From the definition of investment, you have to remove those things and look at only the ones with productive potential. So that is the reason the author is saying, let's look at national account statistics. If you look at national account statistics, it provides disaggregation of gross capital formation. So it segregates the data. It segregates the data into different things. What are real productive assets and what are the ones in which you are only buying financial assets. Financial assets means buying bonds, shares and companies and then giving loans to states. So let's remove all our gold. Let's remove all of them and let's only look at the ones which are directly put into building roads, infrastructure or agriculture, or that is something directly put into industry. If you look at that aspect, over 90% of that will be fixed investments. Only 10% are these financial investments. Right? So there is an upturn in investment and it is absolutely welcome. It is absolutely welcome. The only problem with the government's decision of increasing investment is something we have already discussed. What is that? It spent a lot of money on this segment, which is services, and neglected agriculture and industry. That is what the author is trying to say in these two paragraphs. It spent a lot of money on the third aspect, services, and not on first two aspects, agriculture and industry. And even within services, they spent a lot of effort in transport, and within transport, roads. So this is what the whole problem is. Let's look at this. Roads and communications, they are classic public goods. Investment in them is welcome. Nobody says we should not invest in roads. Yes, we should invest in roads. They are public goods. What is the meaning of public good? Anything. So this is a keyword. Whenever you see a keyword, you should stop there and write its meaning. Public good and private good. Let's say I buy a shirt. I am paying for it and I am going to use it exclusively. So this good is for my exclusive consumption. So a shirt is a private good. If the government is laying a road, is this for a single person? No, it is for all public. So this is public good. If something is created for the benefit of entire public and not just for one person, you call it a public good. If the government buys equipment for defense, our army, again a public good. Roads, public good. Water, irrigation, public good. If you are buying a shirt, private good, for your own consumption. You are buying a car, private good, for your own consumption. It is not for entire public. So if government is spending money on these public goods, yes, it is welcome, because these public goods are going to be useful for your agriculture and industry as well. But the problem is overemphasizing on them. If you are overemphasizing on them and if you are spending money only on those and neglecting the other two, there is a problem. So we need to balance the directly productive investments. What is directly productive investment? In farms and factories. Think about it, think about it, think about it. Agriculture, industry, services. You are investing in services with the hope that this investment in infrastructure within services will help industry, will help agriculture, which means if you are investing in infrastructure, it is going to indirectly help agriculture and industry. Now the author is saying the government could have directly helped agriculture and industry, right? It could have directly helped agriculture and industry, but the government did not do much on that. So directly productive investments in farms and factories did not happen. And this balance was missed. You need to balance your investments in infrastructure and your investments in agriculture and industry parallelly. Unfortunately, that balance was missed. And because of which our dependence on imports grew. See, if you are not putting in enough investments in the industry, your industrial production will go down. If your industrial production is not sufficient, for every damn thing you will need to import. So India started importing more and more from China. Our dependence on Chinese imports went up because the government did not focus much on domestic industry initially. That is the reason investment in industry fell from 19.2 to 16.5. We have already seen it in the table. So finally, government started talking about Make in India. Even that could not take off. that could not take off, because of which import dependence went up further. India became deindustrialized, and for bulk drugs, fertilizers, capital goods, for everything we started depending on China. And in COVID-19 pandemic, when China imposed export restrictions, Indian economy suffered, because you are importing everything from China, and when China put in these restrictions on the exports, Indian economy had to suffer. Right? If you don't want to suffer during external shocks, you have to increase your domestic industry. You have to improve your domestic industry. We need to produce more in domestic industry. That is what the author is trying to say. Look at this. We can directly come to the final aspect. The lack of domestic capacity for essential raw industrial materials and capital goods could prove costly. We are still dependent on China and other countries for raw materials and capital goods. We did not have enough of them. The reason for that is because the government did not put enough investments in industry and agriculture. Rather, it focused more on the services aspect of it. And that is the flaw in the investment strategy of the government, which the author is pointing out. Right, now it will likely test India's ability to withstand external economic challenges. Whenever you have a challenge, you are suffer, because you are linked with Chinese economy, you are linked with all the other economies, you are dependent on imports from other countries. Now rupee is depreciating. When rupee is depreciating, your import bill will go up, and rising inflation, that to imported inflation. When import bill is going up, whenever you are purchasing something from other countries, the cost of them will go up. That leads to rise in prices, which is imported inflation. So economic recovery is going to get harder because of these linkages. Imagine if India doesn't depend much on the foreign countries and produces all the raw materials within the country, then you don't need to depend much. Even if there is, even if rupee depreciates, you don't need to worry about it, because you will not have the prospect of imported inflation. Import bill will not go up because you are not dependent on imports much. So we need to reduce our dependence on imports, and we have to increase our exports. That is what the author is trying to say. Finally trying to say. And the final statement is the deficit on balance of payments is already well above policymakers' comfort level of 2.5% of GDP. So he is pointing out a fact. What is balance of payments? This is India. I have repeated it multiple times. This is rest of the world. There are a lot of transactions in which money flows out of India. For example, whenever you are importing something, or whenever you are paying back a loan taken from World Bank or IMF, when you are paying back, the money flows out of the country. And there are many instances the money comes into the country. For example, when you are exporting something, when you are taking loan, the money flows in. So all these outgoing transactions and incoming transactions, if you add them up, who maintains the record? RBI maintains the record of all the transactions. If you add them up, you will get balance of payment. If the balance of payment is negative, which means more money is going out than coming in, and government has a level of 2.5%, which means that the negative value shouldn't be more than 2.5% of GDP. So you might have a doubt, sir, what happens when more money is going out and coming in? Where more money is going out and coming in, how will you balance it? Let's say, let's look at everything in terms of dollars. Let's say we are getting $100 from all the countries together with your exports, loans and everything. And let's say $120 are going out because of your imports and other things. So there is a deficit of $20. From where will you get this $20? To bridge such issues, RBI maintains reserves. RBI maintains foreign exchange reserves. So from these reserves, RBI balances that out. Okay, this balance of payment should not be more than 2.5% of GDP, but unfortunately, it is already well above that, because of very high import dependence. Because rupee is depreciating, international commodity prices have gone up, import bill has gone up. Because of all these reasons, we are facing this balance of payment situation. If only India focused more on developing industry and agriculture, more than the infrastructure or similar to infrastructure, we could have avoided this situation. This is what the author is trying to tell us. Okay, if you have attended this, if you have listened to the entire article in a detailed manner, you learned the following. Gross fixed capital formation is one thing that you have learnt. Crowding in effect is another thing you have learnt. Public goods is the other thing you have learnt. What is public good, what is private good, and the importance of infrastructure and how it supports industry and agriculture. I have explained this concept. And the need for balance between infra investment versus agri and industry investments. Author is finally focusing on this aspect. We need to balance out our investments in both of them and should not put all the money in one basket. This is what the author is finally trying to tell us. And there are other concepts like imported inflation due to rise in import bill. This is imported inflation. That's about it. So let's move on to the next article. So let's look at the second article of the day. So this comes under General Studies paper 2, your governance paper. Adding digital layers of indignity. What does this mean? By digitization, by going in a technological manner, we are humiliating people. We are creating people to feel indignity, lack of respect. How? What is the link between technology and right to live in a dignified manner? It's a beautiful dimension that the author has created here. Generally, we have a tendency to use technology in a positive frame of mind or a positive sense. In all our answers, majority of our answers, in way forward and conclusion, we have a tendency to use technology. By using technology, we can solve so many problems. But technology is also creating some problems. Instead of solving, it is creating some human dignity problems. Let's look at that link between technology and how it is making people feel bad about themselves. Let's look at this beautiful article. The author starts by saying human dignity or right to live with dignity is a constitutional imperative. So Article 21 gives us right to life. This automatically includes right to live with dignity. But unfortunately, in government discussions around digital initiatives, it never comes into picture. Whenever they talk about digital initiatives, they never think about dignity aspect of humans. They never think about dignity aspects of humans. They don't think about human dignity. They don't think about hardships in accessing rights. Sometimes technology makes it easy for you, and sometimes technology makes it difficult to access your right. Right? These things are generally not discussed while assessing policies, is what the author is saying. They are relegating these principles like human dignity and hardships to its blind spot. They don't look at those spots at all. Often, when technological glitches prevent one from accessing rights, there is a tendency to make the rights holder feel responsible for it. If you are unable to do something because of a technological glitch, again you are blamed, not the technology. Technology not being blamed, but the person using the technology is being blamed. That is how it is right now. He has given certain examples here. The author talks about two technocratic initiatives. He spoke about two technocratic initiatives by the government. Look at this. First one, the Integrated Child Development Scheme. We all know ICDS. It was launched in 1975. It is one of the, during Indira Gandhi regime it was launched. It is one of the world's largest early childhood care and development programs. One important component of this program is supplementary nutrition for children in 0 to 6 year age group and pregnant women and lactating mothers who have given birth. This became a legal entitlement when it became part of NFSA, National Food Security Act, which was enacted during Dr. Manmohan Singh's regime in 2013. So NFSA gives you a legal right to food. Legal right to food. It includes pregnant women, lactating mothers, and children. So according to this, as per this, all the right holders, whoever has the right, they get hot cooked meals or take home rations at the local Anganwadis. They can go to local Anganwadis and take food, and also they can take home rations. But what happened in 2021? In 2021, Union government launched something called Portion Tracker. It is a centralized platform, obviously a digital platform. For what? To monitor all nutrition initiatives including ICDS. So these platforms will help in which way? Yes, they will help in monitoring all the aspects of the scheme. Recently, they tried to review this centralized platform, Portion Tracker. So there is this recent article by Tapasya of Reporters Collective. It highlights some of the issues, allowing technical proposals. Look at this. As per Union Government Circular, updating of Aadhaar of ICDS right holders, including children, on Portion Tracker is mandatory, and subsequent central funds for supplementary nutrition to states is being made contingent, which means conditional, on this. Are you getting this? Unless you update your Aadhaar, whether you are a mother or a pregnant woman or a child, you must get your Aadhaar updated. Unless you update Aadhaar, you will not get these free food and all these things. You will not get them. And he is saying nearly 3/4 of the children between 0 to 5 years, they do not have Aadhaar cards. These children, they do not have Aadhaar cards, and Supreme Court's orders specify that children cannot be denied their rights for lack of Aadhaars. Obviously, Supreme Court says just because they don't have Aadhaar, you cannot deny what the law gives them, what their right is. You cannot deny their right. That's what Supreme Court said in multiple aspects. But the government is asking for Aadhaar card details of both mother and child. Mother and child. And someone approached the government, and now the government says only the Aadhaar of mother need to be authenticated at Anganwadis. This is one aspect. Second aspect is, look at this. In another study of common service centers, biometrics of 42% of users don't work on the first attempt. Look at this. For getting what you are supposed to get, you will need a biometric authentication. So your eye scans or your finger thumbnails, the thumbprint is something they take, and they don't work on the first attempt. 42% of the users, these biometrics don't work on the first attempt. So what happens when such things happen? Will they accept that there is an issue with the technology? No. They will immediately push it on to people. Your body is not working, your body is not cooperating. They will try to pass on such comments on these users. Look at this aspect. As per the recent National Family Health Survey, 36% of the children under the age of 5 are stunted. What is the meaning of stunted? They do not have sufficient height for their age. Look at this. For your age, you are supposed to be at a certain height, but your height is less than what it is supposed to be. Similarly, for your height, you are supposed to have a certain amount of weight. But for your height, if your amount of weight, your weight is less than what is supposed to be, then you call it wasting. This is called wasting, and this is called stunting. It is very easy to remember. Wasting and weight. Remember this way. Wasting is lack of weight, which is lack of sufficient weight, and stunting is lack of sufficient height as per age. And here the survey says 36% of the children are suffering from stunting, and nearly 1/3 are underweight. So these are pre-pandemic numbers. Obviously, with pandemic, the issue might have worsened and numbers might have further gone up. In such light, creating new hurdles for children. migrants otherwise and young mothers to access food in the name of digitization appears cruel. Now they are already suffering, they don't have enough food, they don't have enough nutritious food. Now you are harassing them in terms of using technology. They come and they try to get what they are supposed to get. Unfortunately, these machines don't work and you will deny what they are supposed to get. Already they are struggling because of stunting and wasting, and pandemic has made them struggle even more. At this time, now they are being made to suffer more because of this digital initiatives. That is what the author is saying. And he is also giving one example of a pensioner whose biometrics failed repeatedly, and he poignantly remarked, poignant means with a lot of pain, he said, I feel humiliated that my own body is rejecting my identity. See, my own body is not recognizing me. It is not even recognizing me. Then who will recognize? He is already suffering, he is already poor. His own body is now not recognizing his identity. That is how he is poignantly feeling. Because he goes to a bank, he tries to authenticate using biometrics. Unfortunately, the machine doesn't work, or his biometrics don't match, or something, they don't get recognized. And the bank fellow, the bank manager, or someone who is in charge of it, they throw some cuss words, and these people feel humiliated. They are losing their dignity. So this is the problem with technology. Unfortunately, people are unable to access their rightful goods because of this technology. Technology is supposed to make their lives easier, but unfortunately, it is making their lives tougher. This is one aspect. So the problem here is we are talking about two initiatives, right? We spoke about first initiative. First initiative is with respect to food, ICDS. So there are issues with respect to it, we have already discussed. The second initiative is NMMS. NMMS, what is this? National Mobile Monitoring Software App to record attendance of Manrega workers at work sites. You know Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, which guaranteedly gives 100 work days in a year for a family member, 100 work days. But now the government is asking all the employees, all the workers to register their attendance. So there is a mobile monitoring software that the government is launching. As per this order, the app will record 2 time-stamped and geotagged photographs of the workers in a day. So when he is coming and when he is leaving, so they will take a photo with geotagging, which means the location will also be tagged. And it is time stamped. For example, if he is coming at 9 a.m., he has to come, get clicked along with location. When he is leaving at 4:30, he has to again get clicked along with location. So at that location, he has to get clicked and then leave. So this is to ensure that they are there during the day. That is the intention of the government. Which increases citizen oversight of the program, besides potentially enabling process of payments easier. So that is the government's initiative. So what is the government trying to say? Now it ensures all the people who are getting benefited from Manrega, they come, they work, and then they go. So the government will be able to see whether these people are working or not, or are they just coming and taking money. To ensure that people are actually working, to ensure that they are actually there at this spot throughout the day, the government is coming out with this technological initiative. It is a good initiative from the perspective of efficiency, from the perspective of no wastage. Yes, right. But there are certain issues even in this aspect. See, look at this. A recent article by Chakradhar Buddha and Lavanya Tamang in the Hindu, and a letter to the government by People's Action for Employment Guarantee, articulates the perils of such a move. Perils means dangers. When the government gets into this kind of thing, it has certain dangers associated with it. So here is the short summary. It says, Manrega workers could complete their share of work and leave. Initially, they could complete whatever they were supposed to do and leave and do something else somewhere else. When they are doing something else and somewhere else, they can earn more. They are getting some money here. They can also go to some other place, work, and then earn more. So they have this opportunity. So this gave them time for household work or other work that gave them supplementary income. Unfortunately, this app is making it hard. Why? Now they have to stay back at the work site even after completing work. Why? Because it needs a photograph with a time stamp. You have to stay till 4:30 or 5:30, whatever is the time. Whether you have work or you don't have work, whether you have already completed or you have not completed, you still have to stay back. This is a problem. This is a problem. And it also talks about another aspect. The attendance at sites is taken by mates who usually are local women in charge of worksite supervision. Right? There are some people who are made to supervise the work. So they are supposed to take the attendance. For that, they need to have a smartphone, because this is an app which works on smartphones. If they don't have a smartphone, now the government is forcing them to buy smartphone. See, many mates are being forced to take loans to buy smartphones to use the app. This is the problem. It also demonstrated how a worker has lost more than 1100 rupees of her wages because the app failed to upload her attendance. Look at this. The lady came, she worked the whole day. Unfortunately, the app was not able to record her attendance. Technological failure. Because the payments are linked to attendance, she could not get 1100 rupees even after working. This is another failure. So in this way, there are so many problems with the technology. This is the problem. So the author is suggesting, instead of going for technology, you can go for social audit. What is the meaning of social audit? Social audit means, in order to verify whether a work is getting done properly or not, you can form a team from the local community. You can form a team from the society where the work is going on, and you can ask the team to monitor. So how much is the fund being released? How much is the work done? So they will monitor, they will audit, and they will submit the report. This is called social auditing. So by strengthening social audit mechanism, we can make sure that work gets done properly and there is no wastage of money. Instead of doing that, the government is relying more on technology. From one perspective, it is good, but there is another perspective which is dehumanizing. People are being made to suffer. They are losing their dignity because of these things. That is why the author says, these technological initiatives point to a digital avatar of panopticon with no evident positives for the rights holders. What is this panopticon? You have a word here, panopticon. I will show you one image. So this is your panopticon. In good olden days, in this image, if you see, all these are cells, prisons, you can say prison. So there are prisoners inside them. To monitor all of them, to monitor what they are doing, there is this lighthouse kind of setup, and supervisor sits here. It is centrally located. From sitting here, he can watch what all are doing. So this is called panopticon. Now what is the government trying to do? Government is trying to ensure all these people who are getting benefited from the government are working. The government is trying to ensure all these people who are getting benefited from the government are actually working. Government wants to oversee whether they are working or not. So here is the catch. Look at this. The sense of continuously being watched induces fear among people. If someone is watching you continuously, if someone is watching you continuously, it automatically induces a sense of fear among people. And this fear normalizes and exacerbates the power asymmetry between right holders and the government. All the people will tend to feel being coerced, means forced. But the government is forcing me. For every rupee that they are giving, they are forcing me, they are constantly watching me. That kind of sense of fear will come in your mind. Now, right holders will be made to take the blame for technological reasons. If the technology fails, and this right holder, the person who is supposed to be the beneficiary, he is taking the blame. If technology fails to recognize or report his attendance, or if it fails to recognize his identity, and it is blocking their participation, right? So this further alienates and erodes the political capacities of the right holders, who usually get addressed in patronizing terms such as beneficiaries. Very important word. What is a beneficiary? So there are two ways to look at it, right? If you address someone as a beneficiary, that means he is getting benefited, which means you are giving, he is taking. The government is giving, he is taking. He is at the receiving end. Should we look at the person as a beneficiary, or should we look at the person as a right holder? Very important distinction is there. When you are looking at a person as a beneficiary, you are not treating him with respect. When you are looking at a person as a right holder, he has a right to demand work from the government, then you are giving him respect. This is a very important point. When you are telling you are a beneficiary of the government scheme, that means I am giving, just because I am giving, you are surviving. You are not treating him with respect here. But whenever you are addressing him as a right holder, yes, he has a right. Being a citizen of India, he has a right to work, he has a right to education, and I am his servant. Being a servant, I am supposed to serve him. But when you are using technology, when you are making him feel bad about himself, you are actually treating him like a beneficiary and not as a right holder. This affects his dignity. His right to dignified life is getting affected here. In this process, violations of dignity get buried in the calculus of technocracy and opacity of the government actions. Opacity, what is the meaning of opacity? Lack of transparency. Government wants to see what every citizen is doing, but it doesn't allow citizens to see what government is doing. Ideally, that is what is transparency, right? Good governance includes transparency. People should be able to see what the government is doing, but government wants to see whether people are actually working or not. Government wants to ensure government wants to see what is happening, but it doesn't want to be seen. Very important point. Look at this. The last point is crucial. While the Indian government has put so much weight behind seeing its people, the majority are unable to see and scrutinize government actions. Government is putting a lot of weight in seeing its people. It wants to see what everyone is doing, but majority people are unable to scrutinize the government actions. Democratic dictum suggests that people should be able to see the state clearly and not the other way around. That is what democracy is all about. Governments are supposed to be accountable to people. Governments are supposed to be responsible to people. They are supposed to be transparent with their actions, which means people should be able to see or watch what the government is doing, but not the other way around. But here, the government is trying to impose itself. It is trying to see every action that we are trying to do. It is the dignity and the trust of people at stake. It is the human dignity that is getting lost here. It's a beautiful article, a very beautiful dimension, a different dimension has been added to the technology aspect.